seen a more accurate quarterback?
He's the most accurate thrower I think has ever played the position.
Troy Aikman has been perfect. It's a supersonic laser blast from Aikman to Earth.
Troy Aikman, 3 Super Bowl rings, Hall of Fame, first ballot. But here's what nobody wants to talk about. 165 career touchdowns, 141 interceptions, an 81.6 passer rating, only one season with more than 20 touchdowns. Right now, some of you are already typing in the comments defending him. Others are nodding, thinking, finally, someone's saying it. But here's the thing, you're both right and both wrong. Because the Troy Aikman debate isn't actually about Troy Aikman. It's about how we measure greatness in football. And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why this argument has lasted for over 2 decades. Let's start with the uncomfortable truth. If you pulled up Troy Aikman's stats without knowing who he was, you'd think this was a mid-tier quarterback from the 90s. Career stats: 32,942 passing yards, 165 touchdowns, 141 interceptions. That's barely a positive touchdown to interception ratio. Ryan Tannehill has better career numbers. Let me say that again. Ryan Tannehill, but it gets worse. In 12 seasons, Aikman only threw for over 20 touchdowns once. That was in 1992 when he had 23. His next highest, 19. For context, Patrick Mahomes threw 41 touchdowns in his MVP season. Even in the 90s, Brett Favre threw 39 in 1996. Aikman never threw for 4,000 yards. Not once. His career high was 3,445 yards in 1992. Meanwhile, Dan Marino was throwing for 4,000 yards multiple times in that same era. His 81.6 career passer rating, it ranked outside the top 10 among his own contemporaries. Steve Young finished with a 96.8. Brett Favre had an 86.0. Even Mark Brunell had a better rating at 84.0. Now let's talk about who was around him. This is where it gets really interesting. Emmitt Smith, the all-time leading rusher in NFL history, Hall of Famer. Michael Irvin, one of the greatest receivers ever to play, Hall of Famer. The offensive line, Larry Allen, Mark Stepnoski, Nate Newton, Eric Williams, multiple Hall of Famers and Pro Bowlers. Charles Haley on defense. Deion Sanders joined later. The 1990s Cowboys had 11 Hall of Famers on their roster at various points. Think about that. You had arguably the greatest running back ever carrying your offense. You had one of the most dominant offensive lines in history. And you had playmaker making circus catches. The criticism is simple. A system quarterback. Someone who managed a stacked roster. The bus driver taking a Ferrari to the championship. Here's the part that really bothers people. From 1991 to 1995, during the Cowboys' dynasty years, their offense ranked in the top 3 in the NFL. But look at how they scored. Emmitt Smith led the league in rushing touchdowns multiple times. The run game was dominant. When the Cowboys needed a score, they handed it to number 22. Aikman's job was to not mess it up. In the 1993 NFC Championship game against the 49ers, Aikman suffered a concussion and left the game. Bernie Kosar came in, and the Cowboys still won to advance to the Super Bowl. But here's the key detail people forget. Aikman came back and played in Super Bowl 28, completing 19 of 27 passes for 207 yards in the win. So while the backup could manage one game, Aikman was still the guy for the championship. The question becomes unavoidable. How many quarterbacks could have won with that team? But here's where we need to pump the brakes, because context matters more than you think. The 1990s were a completely different NFL. The rules protecting quarterbacks didn't exist like today. Defenders could absolutely maul receivers 5 yards past the line. No defensive holding on every play. No automatic first downs for breathing on the quarterback. In 1993, the NFL averaged 335.6 points per game, league-wide. In 2023, it was 439.2. That's a massive difference. Aikman's 61.5% career completion percentage, in his era that was elite. He led the NFC in completion percentage at 65.3% in 1991. Today, 65% gets you benched. Here's another stat that'll blow your mind. In the 1990s, Aikman had 90 wins as a starting quarterback. That was the most wins by any quarterback in a single decade at the time of his retirement. More than Brett Favre, more than John Elway, more than anyone. You don't accidentally win 90 games in a decade. This is where the Troy Aikman defenders always come in hot. And honestly, they've got ammunition. Career playoff record, 11-5. 3 Super Bowl championships, perfect in the Super Bowl at 3-0. But let's go deeper than just wins. Let's talk about when he showed up. In Super Bowl 27, Aikman completed 22 of 30 passes for 273 yards and 4 touchdowns. He was named Super Bowl MVP. That's not a bus driver. That's a guy who cooked. His playoff passer rating was 88.3, better than his regular season. When the lights were brightest against the best defenses in the most important games, Aikman elevated. From 1992 to 1995, in 11 playoff games, he had a passer rating over 100 in 9 of them. Think about that. When it mattered most, against playoff-caliber defenses, he was lights out. In the 1992 playoffs, he threw 89 consecutive passes without an interception, breaking Joe Montana's record. In the NFC Championship against the 49ers, he completed 2 game-changing passes that sent Dallas to their first Super Bowl in over a decade. Against the Packers in the 1994 playoffs, he threw for 337 yards. 3 different receivers had over 100 yards. His 94-yard touchdown pass to Alvin Harper was the longest play from scrimmage in playoff history at the time. Here's something you can't argue with. The people who actually knew football loved Troy Aikman. Norv Turner, his offensive coordinator, called him the most accurate passer he'd ever seen. When asked in an interview who he'd choose as his quarterback for one game, Turner said Troy, no hesitation. His reasoning, because I want to win. Jimmy Johnson, who coached Dan Marino, said Aikman could have put up huge passing numbers. Quote, when it came to throwing the football, he was as good as anybody I ever coached. Think about that. Jimmy Johnson coached Dan Marino, one of the purest passers ever. And he's saying Aikman was in that conversation for pure arm talent. Bill Parcells, Joe Gibbs, all the great coaches who faced him respected him. You don't get that respect by being a bus driver. Here's the uncomfortable truth that both sides miss. Troy Aikman's job was not to put up video game numbers. His job was to execute the most efficient offense in football, to complete 65% of his passes, to not turn the ball over, to make the right read, to let Emmett eat. When asked about it, Aikman himself said, as a quarterback, your job is to move the football and win games, not to chase stats, not to worry about fantasy football, to win. And that's what makes him so hard to evaluate, because he consciously chose team success over individual glory. In 1992, his best statistical season, he could have thrown more, but the team was winning. Why force passes when Emmett's running for 1,700 yards? The Cowboys' offense from 1991 to 1995 ranked in the top 3 in efficiency, third down conversions, red zone scoring, all elite. That doesn't happen without great quarterback play. The Troy Aikman debate is really about this. What makes a quarterback great? If you say stats, Aikman loses, every time. He's not touching Marino, Montana, Young, Favre in raw numbers. If you say championships, Aikman's in the conversation. 3 rings in 4 years. Only Tom Brady's Patriots matched that in the 2000s. Both arguments miss the point. Troy Aikman was exactly what his team needed. Not what the stat sheet needed, what his team needed. The 1990s Cowboys weren't built around 40 touchdown passes. They were built around ball control, physical dominance, and surgical precision. Imagine asking Aikman to throw 500 times a season. It would have been stupid. You have Emmitt Smith. You have the best offensive line in football. Why would you air it out 40 times a game? Is Troy Aikman a Hall of Famer? He was inducted first ballot in 2006. And yeah, he deserved it. The Hall of Fame isn't just about who has the prettiest stats. It's about impact, legacy. Can you tell the story of the NFL without this player? You cannot tell the story of the 1990s without Troy Aikman, period. The Cowboys dynasty is Troy, Emmett, and Michael. You can't separate them. Terry Bradshaw has a similar career arc. 4 Super Bowls, not insane stats. But nobody questions Bradshaw's Hall of Fame credentials. Why? Because he was the quarterback of a dynasty. Same with Bart Starr. 5 championships with the Packers. Not gaudy numbers, but he defined an era. That's Troy Aikman. He defined the 1990s. So let's bring it home. Is Troy Aikman overrated or underrated? Here's my take. He's accurately rated by people who understand football and misrated by people who only look at stats. If you judge him by today's standards, yeah, he looks pedestrian. But that's like judging a 1990s computer by 2026 standards. Different era, different metrics. If you judge him by wins, championships, and efficiency in his system, he's elite. The reality, Troy Aikman was a Hall of Fame quarterback who happened to play in a system that didn't require him to chase volume stats. He was the perfect quarterback for the perfect team at the perfect time. Was he the best quarterback of the 90s? No. That's probably Steve Young or John Elway. Was he a top 10 all-time quarterback? No way. But was he great? Absolutely. Could any quarterback have won with that Cowboys team? Here's the thing. They didn't. Troy did. 3 times. The Troy Aikman debate teaches us something important about how we evaluate athletes. We live in an era obsessed with stats, fantasy football, Madden ratings. We want every player to be a video game character. But football is a team sport. Sometimes the best thing a great player can do is not be the star. Aikman understood that. He checked his ego. He ran the offense. He won championships. In today's NFL, would Troy Aikman be elite? Maybe, maybe not. He'd be throwing to different rules in different systems. But in the 1990s, in Dallas, in that system, he was exactly what he needed to be. And that's worth celebrating. So next time someone tells you Troy Aikman was overrated, ask them this: how many rings you got? And when someone tells you Aikman was the greatest, remind them, stats don't lie, but they don't tell the whole truth either. The truth is somewhere in the middle. Troy Aikman was a great quarterback who won championships in a system designed for team success. He sacrificed individual glory for team victory. And at the end of the day, isn't that what football is supposed to be about? 3 Super Bowls, Hall of Fame, the winningest quarterback of the 1990s. That's not bad. That's not bad at all. So what do you think? Is Troy Aikman properly rated, overrated, or underrated? Drop your take in the comments. I want to hear the debate. And if you enjoyed this deep dive into NFL history, smash that subscribe button, because we're breaking down more legends next week. Hit the subscribe button if you learned something new today. Share this with your football friends who love to argue. And we'll see you in the next one.